Welcome to another episode of SightCall Sessions. My name is Pete Humes and I'm head of content at SightCall. SightCall Sessions is a weekly conversation about the topics, trends, and technology that are shaping the future for enterprise service organizations. Today, I'm joined by Richard Albanese, former Vice President of Technical Support and Training for United Imaging. Today, he is joining us virtually from the Cleveland area, and I want to thank you for sharing your time today, Richard.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
So I thought we could start off our conversation that, while most field organizations have the same kinds of problems, same kind of challenges, rising customer expectations, more complex technology and talent shortages, the medical device industry has sort of added layers of difficulty on top of that. Can you talk a little bit about what makes med device so challenging for field technicians?
Yeah, I think the first thing to remember is it's a highly regulated industry. Mm-hmm. And so field technicians are held to very high standards when it comes to, PM compliance, using correctly authorized parts, documenting their service events in alignment with the requirements of the FDA. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, they are in a business where people's lives can be at risk.
Yeah.
And so when a field engineer gets a call for, let's say, a down CAT scanner in an emergency room, you can imagine that the intensity of that service call can be very high. Yeah. More often than not, there are patients waiting to be treated. Maybe if it's not for emergencies, maybe they're there for their weekly cancer follow-up screening on a PET CT, et cetera. So it can be a highly stressful service event, but also knowing that people are depending on you to get the equipment up and running so that their healthcare can be delivered.
Yeah, it's a lot of companies will, if they have a machine go down, they see it as a matter of life and death. But with medical device, it can sometimes literally
Yeah. I've been on calls back when I was a technician, tech support engineer, to a down system, and you walk through the waiting room and there's all these patients that are there, and you think, it could be somebody from my family, it could be my son or my daughter or my mom or my wife. So yeah, it really brings it home.
And so you mentioned the waiting room with the patients, and one of the things we've talked about in previous conversation is you talked about the important part that field technicians play in customer service. Mm-hmm. So, for a lot of people, it seems like the team will just show up with their tools and they'll get right to fixing it. But it's more complex than that. Can you talk about a little bit about the importance of the customer service aspect of what they do?
Yeah. What a lot of companies don't necessarily realize or overtly realize is that the field service technician, this isn't just medical imaging, this is really anywhere, really are the face of your company to the customer. Mm-hmm. And, the customer interacted with sales and maybe some executives and maybe through your contact center. But after that, the person they see either through periodic maintenance or service events is the field service technician. So it's very important that the technician, has the skill sets to be able to uphold your brand, to be able to demonstrate, the commitment of the company to the customer. And they also need all of the support so that when they walk on site, they can have a level of confidence that they'll be able to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And when you're working on, extremely high tech pieces of equipment, let's say an MRI scanner or a PET CT scanner, the challenges, the technical challenges can be quite high.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important that the field engineer has the correct training. They have access to good documents, good documentation, good parts lists. Mm-hmm. They have the ability to contact a support person if they need help. Mm-hmm. Quickly, right? So they should be able to contact technical support as quickly as possible and not go through multiple tiers or layers and things like that. And I think all of that, and then building the soft skills around that. So giving your technicians, not only the technical expertise, but the training around how to handle upset people, upset customers, emotional intelligence. All of that is very important, because when an engineer walks on site, when a technician walks on site, if they don't exude a level of confidence that they're able to solve it,
Yeah.
that creates a sense of nervousness in the customer, in already a tense environment, and now the customer is not sure if the customer can pick up on the fact that the engineer doesn't feel confident, then that kind of permeates the entire event.
You're a big advocate for building company culture around service teams, to keep them engaged professionally and keep them growing as people. So what do you see, or what have you done in the past in your leadership that companies can do, or company leadership can do, to build that culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Usually companies, especially let's say capital equipment companies, they're focused on the equipment sale.
Mm-hmm.
They're focused on the feature set and the technology and the specmanship of the product. And service in a lot of senior executives' minds is not necessarily top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's to them, a necessary evil. Maybe it's also a cash cow. And the challenge, I think, for service leaders is to kind of bring that voice into the executive leadership room or the boardroom, and make the case and point out that after the salesperson leaves, the company rep that remains is your service technician, right?
Yeah.
And they should have everything that they need, both soft skills and hard skills, to be able to support that customer, and including safety nets. So if they get into trouble, they should have access, quick, rapid access to a subject matter expert to solve the problem. I've worked at a lot of different size companies, and to varying degrees, they kind of get this, but I've seen other companies where, service, frontline service and technical support just simply wasn't top of mind.
Yeah.
And it's difficult. I've been in a situation where, for years we had been, making the case for additional investments into the service area around training and remote diagnostics and advanced service technologies. But service was such a cash cow that it wasn't seen, as a necessary investment.
Yeah.
Until the market changed and, prices started going down and competition came in, and all of a sudden we're still at the same cost level because we haven't invested for years. Now all of a sudden the CEO is interested in what's going on in service. Why is my profitability in service declining?
Right.
The challenge for service leadership, and I don't think there's one answer to this. I think it kind of depends on the company and the leadership, but is to make that case in time that investments in infrastructure, investments in advanced service technologies, remote technologies, training, technical support is critically important, because it might be a cash cow today, but it won't be forever.
It's really important too, that point you made, that they are probably the last point of contact between the company and the customer, at least until they need a new machine, or they need an upgrade or a replacement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be their point of reference for the company. So,
just one of my all-time favorite quotes from a former CEO of SAP, and anybody who's ever worked for me will know this because it shows up on a lot of my slides. And the quote was, "If you're not serving the customer, your job is to be serving someone who is." And I've always taken that to heart, because it's not just service technicians. It could be your order entry people, could be your salespeople, whatever. But the entire company needs to focus on their customer-facing employees and make sure they have everything they need to do their jobs, that they're not overly constrained, that they have some empowerment to say yes in the right situations.
Yeah.
They have to go through 5 levels of finance, approvals to order the right part for the customer, for example.
Yeah, and it's in the company's best interest too, because if it's hard for the tech to do their job, there are probably companies that make it slightly easier, so
Exactly.
they can go across the street. But in terms of emerging technology, service trends, is there anything you feel really optimistic about? Like anything that has the potential to sort of make life remarkably easier for these guys and women on the front line?
Well, of course, the big shiny object in the room right now is AI.
Yeah.
And, believe it or not, we talked about this back in the 80s, late
Yeah.
80s. There's this thing called expert systems. I don't know if you remember that, but there
Mhm.
was always this idea that somebody's going to write some, piece of software that's going to be able to deliver answers,
Mhm.
correct answers to questions posed by technicians and troubleshooting, et cetera. I believe that is the next frontier. I think we're finally at a place we have the right level of computing power. We have a lot of really smart people starting up companies in this exact space. So I feel a lot less skeptical than I was in the past.
Yeah.
But I think, development of AI tools need to be developed with the service technician in mind.
Mhm.
Shouldn't be cumbersome to use. The percentage of right answers needs to be very high, because as soon as you give an engineer or a technician the wrong answer and they're down for another half a day because you sent them down the wrong path, that's the last time they're ever going to use the tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I think, with the advent and the changing dynamics of the workforce, where we have, a newer generation of folks coming in with different skill sets, maybe they don't have all of the troubleshooting, inherent troubleshooting skills that we grew up with, fixing our cars and our TVs and everything.
Yeah.
The use of these, or the implementation of these types of, uh, problem solving assistance, I think will be critical.
Yeah. This is a thought that I hadn't jotted down, but it just came to mind. Is what are the potential drawbacks of that? What are the potential drawbacks of a whole generation of technicians coming along who just get the right answer when they ask for it,
Yeah.
rather than, like you said, somebody who fixes their car and knows how machines work firsthand? Um, I guess
Well,
they'll start fixing themselves in the future.
Well, I mean, first off, things don't break as much as they used to. Things are easier to troubleshoot than they used to because there's a lot more intelligence built in. But helping these folks come up, the challenge is a longer learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
So if let's just look at medical imaging. MRI systems 25, 30 years ago, quite frankly, they failed a lot.
Yeah.
They're super high tech machines, and you really had to, have, strong technical knowledge to be able to diagnose and repair these things. Today, they're tremendously more reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of automated diagnostics built in to help guide the technician towards where the problem is.
Yeah.
But you still need to have that. They still need to have that basic kind of foundational understanding of what the machine is doing.
Yeah.
So we're taking people coming in. Maybe they don't have that kind of inherent troubleshooting mindset. Maybe they don't have, good understanding of tools, hand tools, and test equipment, things like that, because they grew up in a time when it wasn't needed. They grew up in an environment where nothing broke, and when it broke, they just threw it away, got another one.
Yeah.
So your learning curve is going to be longer.
Yeah.
The newer machines will be easier for them to work on. And again, I'm speaking from a capital equipment perspective, but you still have a big install base of legacy equipment out there.
Yeah.
So when you take the newer folks who are trained on the newer machines, which are almost inherently easier to troubleshoot, and you have them go out to a piece of legacy equipment,
Mm-hmm.
that's much more complex. Now they need to have a strong support network. So they need to be able to get in contact with a veteran on that piece of equipment without going through multiple layers of bureaucracy to get to the right person.
Yeah.
They need to have that support structure.
Yeah.
So, what I've always kind of thought of, building, if you're going to build a new workforce, or you're going to, transform your workforce with a lot of new early career entrants, you need to supplement that workforce with a strong set of veterans.
Mm-hmm.
in the field and in your support center that can coach and mentor and help with some of the more complex issues that come up. And I'm not saying that the new technicians won't gain the level of expertise that's needed for, let's say, the older equipment. They just have a longer path to get there.
Yeah.
And more often than not, or chances are your technical training programs are geared primarily towards your latest products, the stuff coming out the door, maybe not so much on the legacy equipment. And so that's challenging. And before all of the veterans retire, we need to digitize their brains and get the information, somehow get it into these AI platforms, so that it's there and it's retained. And the idea is there's a new KPI out there that I really like. It's going to be difficult to measure, is timed value. So from the time I hire an engineer to the time that they're at a level of expertise that's delivering value to the organization.
Interesting.
And how do I shorten that as much as possible? And it's training, it's support, it's a lot of hands-on, probably a lot of mentoring. My colleague over at Train has actually implemented and you probably know this, but an apprenticeship program that accredited for HVAC technicians.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's accredited with Department of Labor so that you can come in, you go to Train, you go through like a 2 or 3 year period as an apprentice with a mentor, with, a formal training program. And at the end of that, you're a certified HVAC technician. That certification is transferable to other companies.
Oh, wow.
So I really like those types of approaches.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think there's a movement, been a movement away from the trades in terms of training. Everybody believes they got to come out of high school and go to a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And the focus on technical trades, I think is lacking. And I think as industry leaders, we should be, advocating and supporting the types of trade training programs.
Optimistic about the new generation of field service workers.
I am, totally. I think it's up to us as an industry to recognize that they have different needs. I think, we need to retailer our training programs and our support infrastructure to be able to address those needs. And that is everything from the technical training to the soft skills we talked about to making sure they have access to good documentation, good technical support. I also think as a services industry, we should bolster and support the trades.
Yeah.
The trade programs as much as possible. So technical certificates, apprenticeship programs, all of the technical institutes, et cetera. I think as an industry, I think we need to refocus on those institutions and partner with them.
Yeah.
And understanding that, when these folks come out of those training programs, that they're coming out at a different point than perhaps we were, back when we came in, and just recognize that. I'm completely optimistic.
Well, this has been a really great conversation, Richard, and we need to wrap it up here, but I wanted to thank you very much for your time. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Take care.